All
All right, what
right.
up, and welcome to the show, The Hype Mind. Question is, should you spank your children? Now, spanking has been something it's very common throughout history, just teaching your kids, but it should be used as a lesson. Now, I don't find it mostly necessary to spank your kids unless it's like a certain type of scenario where you can't teach them any other way. It's kind of like the last resort to teaching your kids when they're not listening. For example, let's say your son is hanging around near the cliff and you tell him no, like stop, like come near me or step away from the cliff. You shouldn't be hanging around there. You could
I
fall.
have so many questions.
Say it again.
I have so many questions. What sort of a parent are you letting your kid hang around at the cliff? Where do you
Well, who
live?
knows? Who knows? It's just an
No, I'm
example,
just
right?
I'm
Could be
just
a lot
kidding.
of
Go
things
ahead.
like
Yeah.
touching the stove. Anyways, let's say, yeah, he does not listen. Okay. You know, if he falls, it will cause serious injury. So he doesn't listen. Maybe then you could spank him if, unless there's another way. Now, there should never be spanking when I feel like spanking can happen, or like a parent is just impatient. They're not willing to sit down with their kid and actually teach them. And they'll just resort to spanking, right? It's quick, it's easy, it's fast, um, gets the point across. But most of the time, I don't think it's necessary unless you're in a type of situation where it's like you need to teach your kid the lesson for their own safety. But like most of the time, it's like even say for example, even if they're on the cliff or they're on the edge of the cliff, it's like just leave, just pick them up, move them somewhere else, and say, hey, you know, and teach them there. Say, no, you're not supposed to, you're supposed to listen to me, blah blah blah. You don't want to be on the edge of the cliff. This is why, whatever. But still, it's like that's it. Most of the time, I don't think it's necessary.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts. First one might be in the form of a sneeze. Um, ooh, uh, yeah, they talk about training your kid or your girlfriend or your wife like a dog, in the sense that if you if you give attention to bad behavior, you're still in some sense reinforcing it. So to some degree, spanking or any sort of physical punishment, like I would say physical punishment in the sense of like washing their mouth out with soap, not like beating them or something, but
Yeah.
um not abuse, but something very more extreme than reprobation or taking something they like away,
Yeah, that's a good idea. We should get
something
specific about
like
what that
that.
is. Yeah.
But yeah, it's an extreme. It's a last resort kind of thing. It's like sending your kid to their room. You know, now they're in isolation, right? That's the whole idea of sending your child to your room, is they're by themselves and they don't get attention and love. But you have to keep in mind that I think I've seen this a lot. I feel like whenever I pass certain family dynamics in like a Walmart, you know, typically seems to be a Spanish origin situation, to be very physically aggressive with your children. And it doesn't seem to work very well. And that's because I think you're just giving too much attention to the bad behavior. So it's really reinforcing it. And it's not the right kind of attention. So I think there's a time and a place for spanking. You know, I can speak coming from a family that I got spanked, and it worked pretty well. Look how cool I am. So obviously, spanking your children pays off if you do it properly to some degree. But I would say the first thing is you have to empathize with children and really understand what's going on, and because if your kid is standing near the cliff, they don't understand the danger of standing near the cliff. And if they're not listening to you, it's because they don't understand they need to listen to you. Um, and so certain reactions aren't appropriate in those situations. I'm trying to remember what I got spanked for. Usually it was some serious disobedience for something that wasn't okay to be disobeyed, maybe bad mouthing. I don't feel like I did that very much, but I'm sure I did. Um, hmm. But yeah, I just remember when the wooden spoon came out. Fear, fear. Oh, I would run, but I couldn't run fast enough. And so that's the other thing is you have to realize what's the result of it, right? Your hope is the result is going to be better discipline, which in some cases it will, but in many cases I think it's better discipline because of fear. And putting fear into someone isn't a very good way to obtain what you want. It's very tyrannical. So you kind of have to already build I've heard it coined as an emotional bank account where they understand that you kind of did everything in your power to respond appropriately before you took a resort that is going to install fear into someone.
Yeah.
So any sort of physical punishment shouldn't really be a first resort. I mean, unless your kid's about to walk off the cliff and you have to grab their arm, but like you do the same thing with a friend. I mean, it's not punishment. It's yes, you're being physically assertive, but even physical assertion, you need to be careful how you use it because, like I said, I've walked through grocery stores and seen, and it's just way too physical with your children. Like,
Hmm.
I, maybe you need to go shopping by yourself, and maybe
That's
that's
got to
not an
be from
option. But
impatience
yeah, exactly.
and
Like
just being
your kids are
irritable
running all over the
yourself.
place, then you need to put them all in a cart and put them on a leash. I don't know, like.
Yeah. Don't take them grocery shopping.
Yeah, exactly. There's got to be a solution, and I'm sure I'll get some backlash for the other half of that, where I'm a single mother, or my husband's at work, or my wife is busy doing something right now, so I had to take the kids. It's like, okay, but racing around yanking their arms off in the store isn't gonna teach them anything. Like clearly they already lack the self-discipline that you failed to teach them as a parent, if that's how you have to respond to them in a grocery store. Because growing up, none of my siblings behaved like shit in a grocery store. We all held onto the cart and followed around. Like that's honestly, that's well worth pointing out. Is like the number of children I see misbehaving in grocery stores is ridiculous. Like insane, insane. But that's probably a self problem you need to look at because
Uh-huh.
if your children aren't behaving in grocery stores, I'll bet they're not behaving at your home. And that means you're not disciplining them properly. And that might be the fact that you might be physically grabbing them when that's not the appropriate response. Again, there's a building up to something as extreme as spanking them. And I don't think it's just fine to spank them. I think it's absolutely necessary to spank children sometimes. Just like it's absolutely necessary to crate a dog and ignore it. Like there is just some very basic like animal instincts in humans where we don't even know we're trying to get attention
To what
through
a dog?
really bad things, huh?
To what a dog?
To like crate a dog or ignore a
Oh,
dog,
create a dog.
like
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because like people would be like, oh, that's not very loving. Like punishment is necessary. Removing your attention is necessary because on some level, human beings are responding biologically in a very animalistic way where like if we want attention we will pout and scream or we
Yes,
will break
absolutely.
stuff, so like
Uh-huh.
you have to kind of play in on the same level but not in the sense where you're
I think spanking's
being
a little
so
different though.
immature.
Yeah. Spanking's a little bit different because spanking's more of a urgent lesson that needs to be taught.
Right.
Like
It's a
for
severity
example,
level.
um, taking away attention, I think is fantastic to do with your children that's misbehaving. If it's not urgent, if it's like if if it can wait, right? And there's not going to be harm from waiting. I mean, this is basically the patience you need to be able to teach
Well, let me
children.
ask you this. When do you see yourself needing to spank your child? And actually, I have another question after that, but yeah, keep going.
I just gave the examples in the beginning of the urgent lesson that needs to be taught. Child's misbehaving that may cause themselves to encounter some type of harm.
Okay, but let's use the grocery store example. Your child's misbehaving in the grocery store, screaming, yelling, trying to run down all the aisles and pull things off the shelves, either to make a mess or because they want you to buy everything for them. I mean, are you going to spank them in the grocery store?
Put them in the car. You can't leave your children in the car, apparently. So no, I mean that's the thing. Like you have to stop. You can't, and I think this is the thing with patience. You can't continue shopping and try to get like you're trying to multitask, take care, make sure your children are behaving and trying to shop at the same time. You can't do, but like this is where the impatience comes in. When you start to spank or aggressively, you know,
Right.
grab your child by their arm, tell them to shut up. That's the impatience. Like you have to separate your duties from when you're teaching your kids. And that's the thing. It's like, it's in a way, this can make it difficult to be a parent, but this is necessary to be able to teach them is to separate your duties from when, when you're teaching them a lesson. It's like, if you have to, don't bring them grocery shopping until they're ready.
And I think the
Like
solution
someone else, your
to something
freaking
like that, and
husband or
I've
wife go
seen
shopping
some
for you.
parents, I
You
think the
want them at
solution
home.
to, huh?
I said you got to do what you got to do. I don't think that's the best response. You avoid that as much as you can. The spanking or the aggressive like
Right. Well,
reprimanding.
and I think that's the solution. You kind of said that without realizing, you're like, oh, you gotta leave him in the car, but you can't leave him in the car, right? So what do you do? Well, there's your answer. You go to the car. You leave. Like, and I've seen parents do that where it's like, oh, you're misbehaving. We're not going to the library. We're not going to the grocery shopping. Like, oh man, we have to live another day without figure it out. So
Yeah.
if they can't behave, then they can't go in public, and you need to figure out a
Oh
time
yeah.
to like remove yourself. Even if it's the park, right? You're just trying to go spend a day at the park with your kids and they can't behave, then you go home.
Mhm. Yeah, and
Because
I
if they're
mean that's a lesson
gonna
in itself right
misbehave,
there. It's
right,
like I can't go out because I'm not good. Like I don't get this privilege to be able to
right,
go out
that's it.
shopping.
That's it. You're not
Yeah.
allowed to go out of the house if you can't behave. If you're
Mhm.
gonna misbehave, it's gonna happen in the house, because in the house you're gonna get disciplined in a place where it can be controlled,
And
right,
that's something
and
and
where you
that's
don't have
something
other
you
inputs.
you take responsibility to do and take care of is well and then I need a babysitter. Well, yeah,
Right,
you would.
right,
Then you need someone else to watch the kids. Yeah. That's what
yeah,
you need to do, you know?
and
Someone to go shopping for you. That's it.
what about spanking in terms of girls versus boys? You think it matters?
Um,
Would you spank your daughter?
yeah, I think so, but I just naturally I feel like I'd be more gentle.
Ah, misogynist, prioritizing women. No, I mean, I don't know. I don't have a son or a daughter, but I think girls can be just as disobedient in many cases. Not always, but I don't know. I would
Yeah.
absolutely, if I felt the need was there to spank my
Oh
daughter.
yeah. I mean, that's it. It's like when you find it necessary, then you do it. And that's the key word right there. It's got to be necessary. There
But it's, yeah,
there
it's
can't
like,
be
you know, like,
you can't be patient any longer. Like it's going to be harmful to be patient any longer because there's some type of threat. Like they're going to touch the stove. Like they're going to burn themselves.
well, and that's I mean, that's not something I'd spank my kid for, touching the stove.
Hmm.
Like, I'd be like,
Let them
if you're
touch
gonna
the
keep
stove.
touching the stove, you're gonna keep burning yourself, and at some point, you're probably gonna learn your lesson on your own. But I'll just try to be there whenever you're near the stove, or I won't let you in the kitchen. But that's the thing, is like, I know looking back, I did not get spanked very often, right? Because it was not something. It was it was appropriately used, in my opinion. It was not something that was excessively used. I didn't get spanked every week. I didn't get spanked every month. It was like, if I got spanked, it was once every few months when I did something really bad, like, and something I knew was bad, and something my parents believed I knew was bad. So it's, is it okay? Yes. Are there, you know, I mean, it shouldn't be a tool you're using every day. It's not a means to release anger on your children. Your children aren't punch dolls.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Like, no, I think that's key right there. What's funny is I'm trying to think to where I've been spanked before, and I was like, no, I can't think of anything. Well, maybe there wasn't a lesson in it. And I remember one time I actually was, and this was when I was ripping money.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so and it was
I was like, no, that's
that's the
my
thing.
hard work.
It was for attention. I knew it. It was for attention. And yeah, I definitely got a spanking for that. But I mean,
Uh,
that's the thing too. Like if I was my parents in that situation, I would do what they did anyways, which is take away the money. Make it
well, and
very
that's
clear. You
that's
don't like there doesn't need to be a spanking here. You don't need to get angry, mad, take away the money. You make it clear that you lost basically your privilege. You make your home childproof where they can make you want them to be able to make mistakes and learn from them. And this is how you teach them patiently so they can.
well, that's easier said than done.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's like you're gonna have shit going on in your life where it's gonna make you angry, upset, impatient, and then on top of that, your child's misbehaving and it's making things 10 times worse, and you just want to nip it in the bud and shut them up. But it's like,
So funny.
is that gonna
That's
help?
so funny. You just said nip it in the bud, because I just read that like 10 minutes ago, and I said, what? The expression is nip it in the bud? I thought it was always nip it in the butt, right? But now that I know it's nip it in the bud, it makes a lot more sense, because if you cut a branch while it's budding, then it never grows into a full limb or a full flower. And so I was like, what? That's crazy. I never understood that. So I can't believe you just said that. It's very weird. Um, but yeah, like, if I honestly, if I got spanked, it was for something, doing something really bad, like throwing something in the house because I wanted attention, right? Or because I just didn't want to listen, when I knew I could go outside and throw something. So it's
And
like,
and there you got attention too. It's like, and I mean, I don't know the exact kind of scenario you were in.
well,
I can really,
and that
it's
is
hard to
like,
judge it, but in that case, it's like, well, you sit your kid down,
I got
say,
attention, but
hey,
I didn't,
go to your
because a
room.
lot of
Like,
times I would get spanked and then I'd get sent to my room. I would get spanked and then I would be isolated. So it was like, not only did I not get the attention I wanted, I got smacked for not getting the attention I wanted, and
yeah,
not 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 pleasant.
no, uh, but in that case, I would have skipped this
Well,
thing.
and I think to not ever get physical with your children doesn't teach a good lesson either. It's like, I mean, unless you're willing to always hug them and hold their hand and stuff, like, but to never let them mentally become aware that you are a parent who's willing to go to a certain extent to lay down the law because you run the house.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
I think this is a
That's a great
huge
point.
problem with single
Yeah.
mothers because, like, having like, uh, I just whenever I've known a single mother, I've never seen a ability to lay down the law to that degree. It was just too much like niceness, right?
Yeah.
And and
This
and
reminds me of Fear of
and
the Lord.
honestly, I saw a lot of resentment as a result of it in the children. They were like, "You're too nice. Like you're
Yep.
too nice." You
Yeah.
know, and when you're angry, it's over something stupid. And like you don't know how to discipline us. That's one reason I think there is a definite importance of having a man in the house or a masculine role. Um, but yeah, like you also it doesn't mean you should look for opportunities to spank your kid. It just means I think your kids usually know when they're doing something really bad. And you know that too. And so when you don't do something and you pretend it's not bad, you're like, "Oh, yeah, you're throwing things in the house. Okay, well, I'm just going to turn a blind eye." It's like that's not going to help either.
Mm.
That teaches your children they can get away with anything. So I think there's an important lesson in saying, look, it's a last resort, but I will spank you. I
Yeah.
will
Oh yeah,
lay
yeah.
my hands on you.
That's why I said before, this reminds me of Fear of the Lord, where it's like to some extent you want your children to be able to like respect you because you are not afraid to lay down the law,
Right.
even that if that means a little spanking. Like that you need to be able to have that ability as a parent to act and say it out how it is and do whatever you need to get the lesson across if you have to.
Absolutely.
All right there.
Yeah. But don't listen to that social crap where you can't touch your children or you're an abusive person because that's crap. Just don't do it abusively. Do it with love. Do it with the intention to teach.
Yes. Oh yeah. With the intention to teach. All right, guys. Thanks for watching.
Peace.
Peace.
Don't forget that subscribing doesn't cost you anything.